Yeah, this is a glimpse into a post-Nadu future almost. Like, this is what we might get in September once order has been restored. So Esper Goryo is one of the decks really catching fire in Modern before MH3, and then Murktide, always a favorite, but had been suffering a little bit. But with this color shift into black with some of the new MH3 cards, that deck is picking up steam again as well. So the people who like casting their counterspells can find refuge in that. And yeah, Psychic Frog, just one of the best cheap threats printed in years, and so good that you actually see it on the left here in the Goryo deck too, where, hey, if you need a discard outlet for your big creature, it does that very well. And if you need a threat that can win on its own through Graveyard Hate, well, it does the job there too. So incredibly flexible card. In Legacy, you see it taking over in the blue-black reanimator deck, where it's the same deal, right? It's the best threat by itself, and it sets up the threats you want to reanimate. But once that deck maybe gets cut down to size, excuse me, at the same time as Nadu, you're going to see Grixis Delver with Psychic Frog picking up that torch. So yeah, one of the cards just shaking up every format that it's legal in, and once you see it in action a few times, it's no surprise.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of the decks in Modern. This is my take on it, because I've been playing quite a lot of Modern recently. I still do enjoy it, even though the bird is floating around. There's a lack of fatal pushes floating around. There's a high number of Galvanic discharges, lightning bolts, kind of damage-based removal, and the frog is actually really resilient to that, right? Like, you can just ditch your hand, keep it around, then you attack them, and then you keep refilling your hand, so you're drawing basically 2 cards a turn with it. And I think that's why we're seeing it be so powerful currently in Modern, even in the face of these tier 1 decks like Nadu. And then if you can back it up with some sort of counter magic, then the card's going to be great. And I think you're right when you speak about this could be the post August 26th metagame, depending on how it goes. But it looks like we've got a mulligan over on Dave Cannon's side, down to 5 cards, but is kind of a combo deck, so you can still get there just on the 5, right?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, and that's where the frog really comes into play too, where you can have a you wish you had 7 cards, but if you keep a good 5 with a frog that starts connecting and drawing cards, you can recover and get yourself out of that hole.
I see a Goryo's Vengeance in hand and a fetch land and a second land. I'm living the dream. I'm going to go turn 1 Surveil. I'm going to put that tracks in the graveyard. Turn 2, I'm going to bring it out, and I'm just going to look amazing on camera, is what is going through David Cameron's head right now. But up against, looks like Bruce Lee on the right of our screen is going to be going first. Dimir Murktide. That, I believe that's one of the Phyrexian Island ones, one of the inked archetypes. What sort of basics do you like, Dom?
Big fan of, the go-to, like, Unhinged full art basic lands, the Zendikar full art basics, some of my favorites, and got some old Portal Second Age islands when I want to bust those out. So okay. I can dabble in a few different types. The main thing is making sure I know what they are, my opponent knows what they are, anyone watching on camera knows what they are. Certainly not the case for these oil slick Phyrexian basics. So gonna frown in Bruce Lee's direction on that one, but he can win our hearts back.
Well, we're on turn 1. We've already got a bit of a stat going here. We have a Grief with on the battlefield being evoked out, and then on the flip side, we've got a Subtlety being evoked out. But putting the Grief back on top, even though we're at a mull to 5, we've now basically just shot ourselves in the foot by going another card down, and we've hit the Grief back on top. So, going to be interesting to see how this goes. So, Veil, end of turn. With that, consider we're going to put the Orcish Bowmaster in the graveyard. Now that's a card that's kind of fallen off the way a little bit because of the bird, I would say. You see,
although if the format moves in this fairer direction, right after the bird is gone, well, Bowmaster, one of the best cards in these, blue-black mirrors, or even against the Boros decks, that thing shooting down an Ocelot Pride is one of the ways you can kind of get back into the games there. So yeah, David Cannon evoking Grief once again. Barely a card left for him at this point, with the 2 mulligans to start, and then pitching a card to Grief both times. And this is one of the weaknesses of the Goryo's deck, is you have a lot of these cards that kind of put you down on cards or just keep you neutral, and not a lot of ways to just go back up on cards unless you're connecting with a Traxxas or Grizzlebrand or something, and then you have all the cards you could ever want. But until then, you often just run out of cards pretty quickly. And again, that's where the frog can kind of come into play, where if the Grief is, you're spending a card on Grief, but that's clearing the way for the frog, and then the frog is helping balance that equation again.
Yeah, I think that's it. at the minute, it's got a little shadow over it. We know it's powerful, but we don't see it too much. But I think, as you mentioned, in the future, we really will see how good that card can be. As we're going to see the Ephemerate now on the Grief. So we get to take 2 cards here. The first one's going to be Murktide, because that graveyard did look pretty stacked. Second one here is going to be Counterspell, I believe that was what was pointed at. Leaving Bruce Lee on the right of our screen with just 2 Orcish Bowmasters. I think that's what we're pointing at. Yeah. And then we've got obviously the rebound of it, so we will be able to take another one of these out the hand as well, because we don't have the mana to deploy both in our next turn. And this is really one of the power points of these Goryos deck, right? Yes, we can get big things out of the graveyard, but they're also a Solitude, Grief, Ephemerate deck, which we're seeing now and how powerful that can be.
Yeah, the issue is it can feel a bit disjointed sometimes, where you've got this Grief, Ephemerate stuff going on over here, and then your reanimated stuff going on over here, and it's quite easy to draw like a little bit of both to where you can't really do either of them effectively. So you draw a Goryo's Vengeance with no targets, and you draw a Grief but no Ephemerate, or no expendable black card, and you just spin your tires a little bit. And that's where the Surveil lands really help to tie the room together.
I just noticed as well, it blended in really nicely in how it looks, but they're playing on some of today's sponsored play mats. We've got Heavy Play as one of our sponsors today, and that's one of these nice magnetic folding play mats that's you're not rolling up your play mat and stuffing it in your bag. This folds up nicely and basically slots in the back plate, kind of like how a laptop does in your bags. Have you got any of these, Dom? You ever had any experience with these?
Yeah, I was sponsored by them for the last BT. They've got, as you said, very unique playmats, but also deck boxes, sleeves. You see their name, their branding, their products everywhere at this point. And you want to dabble in that yourself, you can use that discount code 10% off with the code MODERN20K there. So you're going to see a lot more of that over the course of this weekend and beyond as well. Here in the meantime, we see Bruce Lee fetching for, there we go, Blue-Black Surveil land, Undercity Sewers, and David Cannon just fanning through his graveyard, not so subtly, maybe a sign that there's, a Goryo's fan just looking for a target somewhere.
I think that's the game plan 101, right? Is always having a look, what have I got? Or even just be able to play mind games with your opponent, having a little look, see, going, what we getting graveyard? It's kind of the old, what life are you at? Are you tapped out? No cards in hand? It always spells, oh, you've got something bad's coming my way when my opponent asks me questions along those lines, like, you're at 3? Is this lightning bolt good against you? Yes, it is. Okay, let's go to the next game. Have a little Surveil. Land, don't want to go that to the graveyard. We're going to cast an Orcish Bowmaster end of turn.
Yeah, not clear exactly which dual land that is, but Bruce knows he didn't want it. And the power of these... Okay, you're on top of things.
I am all over alternate art of cards. Like, it is one of you say you go for the basics that everybody knows what it is. I go for the opposite. I want the hardest version of every card, and I own the hardest version of every card because I need to learn them. And then look at the hand here. Look, we've got a Grief and we've got a Gristlebrand itself. Let's have a little look, see if we can get that in the graveyard anytime soon and get it out, because that might be the big deal breaker in this. But have you ever drawn 7 with your Gristlebrand with an Orcish Bowmaster in play?
Not intentionally. It turns out Orcish Bowmaster having flash means you can ruin the day of someone who thinks they're about to have a great time with Gristlebrand.
I've done that. I've been punished by that. Is why I'm asking it. I've been completely got a bit. Just like we got my chat. Apparently, it was a Watered Grave, so I'm completely wrong. But then I used the retro Shocklands.
I trusted you. Well, anyway, the point there I was working towards was, whatever it is, he knows he didn't want it, gets it surveilled away, and gets to have another look at what could be a live draw instead. And we saw, I think it was the Archmage's Charm for that turn. So that's a live one. Very happy to have that one instead.
Oh, okay. Look, I'm actually going to go out and I'm going to hold my own here. That was a Dark Side Shore that went to the graveyard. That in play is the Watery Grave. Okay, right. Back to the game. It's all good. I love it.
Chat, I trusted you. How could you do this to me, chat? God. Anyway.
I love it though. I love all the different sorts of arts in it. Here comes the I think we do have to ditch the card, which is going to be the Gristlebrand for this Grief. We're having a little look. I've got one more card in hand. I've now got a Force Negation. The only target we can pick is going to be the Force Negation. Not really relevant right now in this sort of kind of play, leaving them with a land in hand. Very neutral. Who's got the best top decks in this situation, would you say?
I would say the Murktide deck, because unless you have, the Gristlebrand or Attraction ready to go and any Goryo's Vengeance will win the game on the spot. The Goryo deck, it needs to get multiple pieces together and combine them in the right way to really get anywhere. Whereas the Murktide deck, you can just draw Murktide, you can draw Frog, you can draw, Archmage Charm, Bowmaster. Each of these cards is individually very powerful. So I would say from the spot, I like the Murktide side of things, even though there's a Grief just chilling there on the other side for now.
So David drew an Ephemerate again. So that's double Grief, double Ephemerate you've seen now. But Bruce on the right of our screen, just like, I don't need cards in my hand. I'm just going to rip the perfects. And that is being a Murktide. And it is going to be a huge 8/8 flyer, which is only 2 attacks away from closing this game down. Huge top deck there. Can we respond over on David's side? Let's have a little look. Ephemerate, don't worry about it. Goes to exile. We draw a Prismatic Ending, I think that was. Not the best card to draw in this situation.
Yeah, you can't Thoughtseize the top of the deck, as I used to say. And now it's more often Grief instead, but same principle applies.
You also cannot Prismatic Ending a Murktide. I think we should start that saying.
Yeah, I honestly, I mean, they talk about purple mana coming into Magic. Even that, though, that gets us to 6. We've got a few colors to go before that play is possible. So in the meantime, Murktide's going to trunk in for 8, and that's lethal next turn, unless David can pull a rabbit out of this hat.
I think that rabbit has to be the Lines of Solitude, right? We've got the white card now. If we can rip a Solitude, we can get it off the battlefield. As long as Bruce has not drawn some sort of counter magic or subtlety, that is a spell Snare in hand, I believe. Didn't see what the pit draw was here. Just a fetch. That is not going to be enough, and we're going to go into game 2. We're going to see Bruce taking the game down, game number 1. Trying to advance that record, trying to get to that 7-2. Want to get in the top 8 today. Won that regional championship invite. Want that invite to the MXP Invitational end of the year. So still loads to play for both the players. Let's have a look at their deck list. Obviously, we've got access to them. This is a closed deck list tournament, so we're going to be quite vague on what could and couldn't come in generically. What sort of cards are going to be good against, let's go start on David's side, game down. Good against Dimir Murktide. What sort of cards are we looking to be bringing in out of our sideboard?
Yeah, you're looking at stuff like Teferi Time Raveler, which good against basically everyone in some way, but shuts off the reactive cards, can reset a big Psychic Frog, Murktide Regent, that kind of thing. And then looking at other ways to maybe force your own combo through. So more discard effects, stuff like Orum's Chant, and so on. And then from the other side, it's all the stuff you'd expect. So you've got Graveyard Hate, like Surgical, Nile Spellbomb. Those are obviously coming in. And I think for Bruce, he feels pretty confident he can win a fair fight, right? Like his frogs are better, he's got Murktide, he's got more counterspells, more removal. He just needs to stop David just going over the top with Goryo's Vengeance. So I think he's going to focus hard on shutting off that angle.
Okay, cool, makes sense. I'm having a little look-see, and what I've been caught out multiple times playing. I play a lot of Boris at the minute. Is Harbinger of the Seas. Now, traditionally, Blood Moon. Okay, you reckon my lands, you turn to mountains. I've got a lightning bolt. I could kind of, I still got some game. Harboring the Seas turns everything into islands. It's almost like it's giving me a place of my own medicine over when being a Blood Moon player. Have you been caught out by this card yet?
Oh, many times. Yeah, it's weird because as you say, especially Maze of the Moon, I think is the most direct comparison. That one, where you're turning their land into the color that often has the cheap removal that kills the Magus to unarc them again. If all your lands are islands, there's not a ton of there's no lightning bolt in blue, right? You kind of have to get more creative, resort to stuff like Dismember or whatever, and it just really color shifts the set of answers that actually have any effect in the first place. Also, if you're in blue, you're the one casting the Harbinger, then you're in the right colors to defend it with your Force Negation for free, maybe, or your Subtlety, your own counterspell. So a lot easier to kind of protect it from the first thing that's trying to kill it. So yeah, Harbinger, massive pickup in Modern, but also again in Legacy as well for all of these blue decks.
Are there any cards that are not good in this matchup? Cards that I would want to be taking out. Let's start on, again on Bruce's side here. Like I'm looking at Fatal Push. I'm trying to think this isn't the matchup for it. Am I wrong?
It kills Frog. That I guess Grief once is ephemerate, but it's a question of all right. You need to respect the Frog to some extent, right? It's such a good card, but how many cards do you want that only are good against Frog? So you got the Spell Snare to cover that basis to some extent. You got other removal spells that are a bit more flexible. So what I imagine you'll see is shaving the pushes, but maybe leaving a few copies in just for Frog specifically.
Where do you sit on the proactive versus reactive sidelines? Because obviously you mentioned two cards there. We've got Fatal Push, we've got Spell Snare, both good against Frog. Do you like to hedge more on the Spell Snare side to stop it even in the battlefield, or which obviously makes it a worse top deck later in the game, or yeah, as in if a Frog's already resolved, or do you like Fatal Push because it doesn't matter what point in the game is, you'll still be able to Fatal Push the Frog?
Well, the spell snare is great because yeah, it deals with Frog, but also deals with Goryo's Vengeance, right? The namesake
Okay.
card, Tainted Indulgence, Archaeologist, a lot of other good targets. So, but what that means is spell snare is a premium card. You don't want to feel obliged to use it on the first Frog that you see if you think that it's bait for the Goryo's Vengeance that's coming after that. So you might decide you want some cards that are only good against Frog so that you can use those when you need to and save your more versatile cards for other things.
That's good. That's a really good, nice answer to that. I appreciate that. That was a good way of looking at it. I was looking at it from a completely different angle, and that's what I love. That's why they pair me with really good Magic players, and I just talk waffle the whole stream. But it's constructed waffle, so it'll be good. Right. Looks like we're coming to the end of shuffling here. Remember, Bruce on the right of our screen, 1 game up, looking for that 7-2 record as we come to a close of round number 9. David, though, wants to stand in the way of that, wants to get to that 7-1-1 victory. There's a bunch more Magic to play today, of course, until they get to that kind of top 8 winning in slots. I think we've got about 4 or 5 more rounds until we get to that point. We've got 4 with us ourselves done before we pass off to the next commentary team. So make sure you strap in, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a good one and a fun one. What sort of opening hands are we looking for over on David's side? David's now on the play. Game down. What's the best opener we could have?
So for David, you're chasing the dream, right? You want Goryo's Vengeance on Atraxa, Grizzlebrand, maybe off the Surveil land, so not even a card in the opening hand yet. But we see, is that Emperor of Bones? Is a
Yes,
Cyberclass, David? That's a really nice one. So that one, it can be another reanimated card, can also just be a pretty good card in a fair game. You imagine you exile your opponent's Psychic Frog once you discard it, and then just get a copy yourself, draw a card. Like a very interesting card there. But I think if he's chasing that high, then discard outlet attracts a Goryo's Vengeance. You'll settle for that. You're not asking too much there, I think.
So it looks like we didn't like the hand. We threw it back. It kind of looks a little acceptable to me. We did have a couple of this Ominous Chant in hand. There's 2 copies of that we saw then. Threw them back. Why would they be coming in this matchup?
Well, you're facing a lot of reactive cards, counterspells, including free ones, right? Force negation, subtlety. So just moving in on the Vengeance and crossing your fingers probably not going to work. Whereas if you set up a turn where you lead on the Orange Chant, that clears the way for the thing you care about. And even if they have a bunch of counterspells, they might not be able to fight over the chant, right? If your hand is Spell Snare and Subtlety, well, they don't counter the chant, and then they don't counter anything else either.
This hand looks pretty good. We've got a couple of land. We're obviously down to 6, so we got to pick 1 to the bottom. I think it might be the redundant planes. It looks like David agrees. This is going to leave us with a Solitude, Grief, Goyo's Atraxa. But we've got the tools. We're just missing how to get them into the graveyard at this point. And we're just going to start off with Surveil Land. Can we live the dream? No, we can't. That's just going to go. That is a watery grave, I believe. That is going to go to the graveyard. Surveil Land on the other side. Welcome to Modern 2024, where we just scry the first couple of times. Do you remember the old Mulligan rule where you used to just you'd pick cards back and then scry the top card?
I do. I feared even talking about that or remembering it makes us boomers at this point, but I sure do.
Yeah. We've been around a while, Don. We've been around a while. It's all good though. We have fun. On the other side, I do see a Harbinger in hand. Also see a Subtlety. We're going to put that Murktide to the graveyard. Don't want that right now. Our graveyard is not particularly full, so it makes sense. I think I also see a Spell Pierce, Force Negation, and a couple of land for Bruce. I think I could look what the draw was, but it looks like we're ditching Atraxa for a Grief. This is going to show us and you at home the hand. Potentially, if this Subtlety wasn't in the way. Subtlety ditching a Spell Pierce. Repeat of game number 1. David's having a little think.
It's really interesting how the Evoke Elementals just reshaped how all of these early turns go in Modern, right? Where each player has multiple free spells, and now it feels like you're playing a very different format from the before times where you were paying mana for spells like on your turn. It feels like ancient history at this point.
Do you think that obviously, I'm going to keep going back to it, post November, August 26th, we might see flares making a bigger impact than they had. Obviously, another free spell in Modern, but there's a lot of hype behind them. We don't really see them cast too much at the minute. Are we going to see like a resurgence in them? Are they just like, is everyone sitting and sleeping on them at the minute?
I think they maybe finally kind of got it right in terms of this is how you make free spells, which are pretty situational, do actually have a pretty big cost built into them, and you really need to be in the right deck at the right time for those to come up. It's not just a case of, well, I'm playing blue cards, so I've got Force Negation here and Subtlety here. Flow of Denial, it actually takes some work to get that one in place. So I think those are pretty well balanced for the most part, and we'll probably see some more of them. Flare of Malice, I think, the black one, definitely has some room to shine, but I think those are going to be more specialized than the forces and the elementals and so on.
You're not going to put any of the green one in your Titan lists? Go with turn 1 Arbor and make some more lands out of it. I know you enjoy of that.
To ask for if I can set up a nut draw with like 3 specific cards, I can aim a lot higher than just casting a Cultivate,
No, I'm a simple man, Dom. I just want to see you happy. But look at David's side. We did put that grief back on top. We've drawn it into the face of the Psychic Frog that was cast and is now connecting. Maybe I think we've got the option of ditching this Ephemerate for the Solitude to stop it, but the mana is open on the other side now. They can play straight into counter magic if there is any. And I think the actual draw for the turn was counterspell as well. So maybe a little Punisher doing this at instant speed on Bruce's turn and opposed to just firing off on our turn.
Yeah, although I usually Force Negation there and Subtlety, so between those really have any possible answer covered. So Bruce in commanding position here looks like he is going to be 7-2 heading into this home stretch here of the tournament, and the 2 losses heading towards this top 8. Pretty small field, so you're looking at the record you need. He's still live, probably does not have a loss to give, but can certainly just run it up all the way to the top 8.
Talk to me about this line. We had the option to counterspell there. We had the option. Well, we couldn't really force negation, but we decided to get rid of our force negation for the subtlety. Why would we 2 for 1 in ourselves in that situation over just using counterspell before, of course, combat damage of the frog happens where we end up drawing ourselves a card?
I think the thought might be that, okay, you have so many tools to work with. The punish is you spend the wrong thing fighting over this, and then you get blown out by the follow-up play, whatever that is. Whereas this way, you kind of preserve the most mana and the most universal card. So you don't want to waste, the counterspell that can hit everything, when you could use something which, only hits like one half of the things you care about. And this is another reason you should get to play your Harbinger of the Seas, and now that 3-color deck on the other side, well, it's now a 1-color deck, and that's an even worse position for it.
Especially as we already know, Solitude's been fired off as well, was picked to the bottom from the last subtlety. So this makes perfect sense right now. But yeah, I'll play another island on the battlefield. I'm going to have a little basic land count. We've got 1 plains, 1 island, 1 swamp. Kind of generic, you expect to see that, but now it is going to be an absolute uphill battle in the face of this frog as well, drawing us an extra card every single turn. I suppose we've got no black mana on Bruce's side, but while we keep drawing counter spells, it's going to probably ride out this game for us. Thoughtseize drawn for the turn. Here comes the grief, ditching the Thoughtseize. Counter spell is going to be the stop that from happening. Another card in the graveyard. A Murktide would really close this down ASAP. Consider, finds another frog. Can't cast it, got no black mana. Draw for the turn. Another count. Oh, we got double count. This game's pretty locked up at this point. We're just telling. We're trying to see if we can close it down even quicker. We've got option to land. We've got option to counter magic. Put it to the bottom. We draw. It's an Orcish Bowmaster, uncastable because we've got no black mana currently. But that means it doesn't matter. We can just ditch it to this frog. We can put a +1/+1 counter on it. We can up the clock. Now this is 4 points of damage coming across. This is a 4-turn clock. Things are going pretty well on this side of Bruce Lee here.
Yeah, these are the kind of games where the Murktide deck just looks phenomenal, right? And whether you call it a Murktide or I know people like to call it Frogtide because those are the two premier threats. Really, it's Frog that is doing all the heavy lifting this game. But yeah, the deck just looks phenomenal in spots like this. This is the kind of deck which I think it is designed to prey on to some extent. So going to have an uphill struggle against some of the Boros and Mardu decks that can get underneath it and really overtax its removal. But in spots like this, you really get to have your fun.
Yeah, and it was. We can see the players' faces right now. Only one is really having fun in this, and there's the handshake. Bruce Lee going to take this game down, advance to a 7-2 record. Still everything to battle out for today. Obviously, trying to get to that top 8. She's, comes with the regional championship invite, comes with the MXP championship invite as well. But more importantly, gives you a chance to battle it out to the end of today and call yourself champion. You've done that a few times, Dom. How's it feel just so you to beat a whole flurry of players over a couple of days and take down a tournament and call yourself champion? How does it feel hitting go on that tweet at the end of the day?
I mean, it always feels amazing. Sometimes in the moment, you're so kind of exhausted by taxing your brain for 2 full days of Magic that you don't really experience it in the moment. But you wake up the next day and it suddenly kind of hits you that, oh, wait, I just did all of that. And that's when it really, you fully get to let it sink in.
You're fully locked in the zone. It's cool. It's good to see it, and that's going to happen for one of these players today. So on that one, we're going to step away. We're going to have a short break. We're going to queue up the next round of feature matches for all you beautiful people watching, and we'll be coming right back. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you shortly.